Hi, everybody. Jeff Gayduk here from Leisure Group Travel, and I'm happy to have with me today Allan Wright from Zephyr Adventures. Allan, how you doing today?
Everything's great, Jeff. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So it's good to reconnect with you again. You were one of my Take 5 interviews pre-pandemic, and we had a variety of conversation topics because you are a really interesting guy, super unique history, and you've done a lot of great things in the travel industry. So I'm curious to catch up with you on a number of fronts today. Those that don't know Allan, you've got a successful adventure travel company as well as a conference company as well. So maybe talk a little bit about your conference business first, what you've seen this year, and then we can talk a little bit about adventure travel.
Okay, that sounds great. Do you have any specific questions, or should I launch it and tell you what's happening?
Yeah, I'd say, let's talk a little bit about your conferences because you've got some unique angles there. I know you do a bloggers conference, you have a beer writers conference, a few other businesses there. So, talk about how that started and what you've seen through this pandemic.
So we have 5 conferences that we run as part of our organization called Zephyr Conferences, and those 5 are in the food, wine, and beer industries. 3 of them are essentially blogger, social media conferences, and 2 are business conferences. One where we teach wineries how to do marketing and promote their own tourism, and one same thing for breweries. We were lucky enough to have run 2 of those conferences in 2020 before we knew that the pandemic was upon us, and that was fortunate because the 3 that we didn't run by that point, we canceled, of course. And it was a fascinating process because we actually went so far as to find an outdoor location for one of our conferences. And we were ready to run that, and we had everybody in masks and planned to be in masks and social distancing and outside the whole time. It would have been as safe as anything. And yet, when we eventually said this conference is a go, the people that had told us previously they would be willing to come and attend the conference elected not to do so. And you can totally understand why. They were nervous about getting there. They were nervous about maybe their own finances, whatever risks they perceived, but that conference didn't run either. And, I'm following this very, very closely in terms of travel and the risk of the pandemic. And our advice to people has more or less been that the travel itself is not really the big problem right now. The problem is, what are you going to do once you travel? And this is what our experts are telling us too, right? That the problem is they don't want people traveling for previously Thanksgiving or upcoming the Christmas or winter holidays, because people will go sit indoors and talk to other people in their family who they're not in their safety bubble with, and that's dangerous. So where does that take us? That means that in 2021, until we have got this pandemic under control, I can't see that very many indoor conferences will happen where people are sitting around in a conference room with no windows and not very great circulation. Once the threat is over, which probably is going to be because of vaccination, then everything will change. But then we can talk about too, are we going back to normal, or are we going back to a new normal?
Yeah. Well, I tend to agree with you. Having been to your beer conference back in February of this year, one of the conferences that you were able to launch, the interactivity, the roundtable discussions, being able to have these sort of peer-to-peer communications, that's an essential part of what you do and what happens at so many conferences. And if you take that away, or if that's muted, I think it really affects the experience, notwithstanding the fact that many people have been damaged financially because of this. So the wherewithal in which to attend different shows and conferences is somewhat diminished. That being said, I think the travel experience, I've flown through this, it's very sterile. It feels safe, but again, once you get to the destination, then what happens? What is your interactivity? Who are you bumping into? How safe is it? So you are certainly right to tap on the brakes there.
Yeah. And then we have to look at next year. And when we're looking at our business conferences that provide venues for wineries and breweries, are those businesses going to be ready to be spending money on conferences and travel? Because it's not inexpensive to send one person to a conference that might be halfway across the country, have to pay for hotel, flights, meals, and the conference itself. Whereas we're getting used to not going into an office, and we're getting used to Zoom calls, and we're getting used to virtual education. And so that's going to be, to me, the biggest sort of factor to see what happens in terms of business travel and conferences.
Okay.
And, you know, the experts are predicting it will be down, no question. It'll be down in 2021, no matter what, and probably in 2022 also. And that's our question. How fast will it come back?
Sure. Do you have hard dates for 2021 conferences, or are you still playing things somewhat by ear based on the conditions?
We have pretty hard dates, and I have been very in tune with the science of the situation from the very beginning. So we've been cautious. I don't feel like I have any desire whatsoever to put people at risk for business purposes. So we have been quite cautious, and because of that, we have set and had set months now all of our conferences. Well before we knew about the vaccines, we set all of our conferences for this coming August or later. So we back-ended all of the conferences in 2021. Fortunately, now we're finding out that it's likely that people will have the option to get vaccinated. Dr. Fauci just told us potentially at the end of April, or I heard before, you know, in the April through June timeframe. So August and later conferences are looking much better. And then, Jeff, the question is, do private businesses and organizers and the NBA start requiring people to be vaccinated to come into their conferences or arenas? Which is a fascinating question. I think people, you know, haven't digested yet.
Yeah, I've heard that. We had a discussion last week on another interview about that exact same topic. And my opinion of, at least temporarily, that vaccination is going to be your passport to go certain places.
Yes, certainly. And we're predicting this for our travel customers. If you want to go to Italy this summer, you're probably going to need to have a proof of vaccination. And It's not that unusual, because you already need proof of vaccination to go into countries that have yellow fever, right?
Yeah. So in the normal world, you're in two very fun businesses, the travel sector and then wineries and breweries. Obviously, both of them have been damaged very badly. How do you think wineries, small breweries are going to bounce back through this? What's the word on the street?
Well, so the tough thing about both wineries and breweries is that the ones who sell via retail have done quite well, right? Our drinking hasn't gone down in the United States. It's shifted in consumption patterns. And that means people are buying more from the store or from delivery services. But many small breweries and small wineries have existed based on the model of selling outside their brewery door or their cellar door, or in the tap room essentially, and in the tasting room, right? That's been a very successful model because those breweries and wineries make more money. They're not paying the huge cut that they have to pay for the 3-tier system. Well, boom, that gets eliminated for many of them. So I do know that the wineries and breweries are doing okay. They're doing better than you might think. There have been fewer closures of breweries, for example, than you might have expected. Having said that, this is going to be the toughest time for the northern part of our country this coming 2-3 months. And if breweries, tap rooms are shut down in some states, which they will be, then we might see a pickup again. The question is then, how fast will people come back? So if I have been used to going to a brewery once a week or once every 2 weeks because they're fun, and the last 9 months or 12 months by the time we get out of this, I haven't been doing that, is my entire consumption pattern changed, and I might not go to breweries as often. So it's uncertain, but what is certain is that many of them are still going to be put back in terms of progress financially
Good.
well into 2021.
Yeah, it really nobody knows the answer to these questions. The other one, you're active in the travel blogger sphere as well. What have they been doing this year? Obviously, not a lot of places to travel to, and we can talk inspiration. But what's been keeping them busy?
Well, so we don't have travel blogger conferences. We have food, wine, and beer blogger or influencer
Oh,
conferences.
that's right. Okay. Yep. Yep.
But the same thing, because it's especially in the beer and wine influencer worlds, they love and sort of need to be traveling to breweries and to wine countries, and they haven't been able to do that. So that has impacted their ability to produce content, right?
Yep, goes hand in hand. Certainly, that's where you get a lot of your good content. Can't keep writing about the same places time in and time out.
No.
Yeah.
And so undoubtedly, we haven't seen statistics on this, but I'm confident that many blogs have stopped even functioning because they have less to do, less to write about. And so that'll be an interesting question as well.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of reboots for sure. So the other side of your business, of course, the adventure travel sector. You've got a unique niche operation. Great history as well. I remember from our first conversation. Did you have any semblance of tour programs out this year before pandemic? Anything domestically during this year happen?
Yeah, so we have. Up until recently, we had two brands, Zephyr Adventures, which runs active tours around the world, and Taste Vacations, which runs food, wine, and beer tours around the world. We ran one tour pre-pandemic. It wasn't the big season for running tours. We then canceled everything. We were able to run two outdoor tours this summer in the US, and we're able to do so safely, in part because we took everything very seriously. We never ate inside a restaurant on those tours at all. And then we canceled everything else again. And just to repeat it, I'm not going to run a tour if I don't think I can keep people safe. And people aren't going to come if they don't think they can get there safely either. So that's where we were. Part of our problem was that we had a high percentage of international tours, and those just were out, boom, stopped, right? So this has been a dramatic hit to the travel industry.
Yep. So one of the pivots I saw that you did was the start of Montana Travel, which was a domestic outfit. Did you run any programs in 2020 with Montana Travel, or this is specifically for 2021 departures?
Yeah, so the new brand that we created is called Travel Montana, travelmontana.com. And we had always been running tours in Montana, which is our home state. And Montana is one of the best states for outdoor active travel in the country. It's one of the best states for that sort of travel. It's one of the best locations for that in the whole world, really. It has the two huge, not that they're huge, but that they're hugely popular national parks, Yellowstone and Glacier National Park. Yellowstone is probably the best national park in the country, if not the world, thanks in part to its geothermal features. And Glacier National Park is one of the best hiking parks in the United States. And then in addition, Montana is perfect in terms of as we come out of this pandemic, because it has huge, wide open spaces and a very small population density of something like 6 people per square mile. And so our plan, before we knew anything about the vaccines, was to focus on this, in part because we had talked about doing this for a long time anyway, in part because we moved those plans forward because of the pandemic. And now what we're offering are small group, private and public tours doing outdoor activities in the state of Montana.
Okay. And they'll focus on the national parks, or will you deviate from that, hit some places that maybe only locals and insiders would know?
Yes, so both. So we definitely have the tours in the 2 national parks, and we know them pretty well. But we also have, for example, a hiking tour in the Beartooth Mountains. That is a rugged, not very visited mountain range that's part of the Northern Rockies and is fantastic. And so perfect for people to go and experience the real wilderness with the help of our professional guides. We also do, for example, a bicycle tour in the Flathead Valley area up near Glacier National Park. And Montana is not that easy for bicycling because the spaces are so huge.
Yeah.
You have to go so far between one place and the other, and most of the roads are not paved. And so that area is really great for doing a bicycle tour, a la the classic European tours, hotel to hotel type of thing.
Okay. How many miles will you be hitting in a day on a bicycle tour through Montana?
There'll be 3 routes every day. And so people can choose. They might be around 20, 40, and 50 miles, 60 miles. And so the idea whenever you run these bicycle tours is that you always have people of different abilities, often within the same family or couples that come. And so you have to be able to accommodate everybody. And the idea is we do that by allowing some people to choose the short route, other people to choose the long route, and generally they overlap so people can cycle together in the morning, and then the person who wants to go do more hooks up with the other people who are interested in that and does the long route in the afternoon.
Okay, I like that. And you can vary that per day, I'm guessing. So if you wake up one day, it's like, a little much time in the bar last night, or just not feeling it, I can take the short route. Or if you're feeling extra spunky, you can go and do the hero route.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of a guided, supported bike tour versus going and doing your own bike tour where you're carrying your gear and you have to kind of get from point A to point B, or you aren't going to be where you're supposed to be sleeping that night.
Yeah. Or if it rains or what so have you. So it's nice to have the SAG van that travels with everybody. So they've got some support if need be.
Right.
So
Exactly.
nice. Okay. The adventure trips that you're doing in Montana, how would you rate those on a difficulty level? Would it be for beginners, intermediate, advanced? How does that kind of fall in?
Well, and again, so it's very similar in that we accommodate people of different ability levels. If you go do the Beartooth Mountain hiking one, we've got some routes that are relatively moderate, and you don't have to do the longer mileage if you don't want to. So that's pretty true for most of our tours. They're moderate with the ability to do less and the ability to do more if you want. For private tour groups, if you've got 2 couples or a family of 4, we then tailor the activity to you. And if you were to come on that tour with 4 people, all adults, and you were all gung-ho hikers, we'd go out and take you on 10 and 12 mile hikes. And if you're not at that level, then we'd be doing 5 and 6 mile hikes or whatever it is that you are interested to do.
Okay. And so you'll customize that portion of the trip for them. Or you'll actually do a customized itinerary for a group that size.
So we will do customized itineraries entirely. If someone comes to us and says, well, we'd really rather go to this area in Montana, we can do that too. But that's different from just changing up the restaurants or the hiking paths that we use in our existing itineraries, which is much easier to do, of course.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely.
But we can do both.
And what would you say average group sizes will be on your Montana tours?
So we also have the public tours, and those will probably be similar to Zephyr Adventures, which means around 12 to 14 people. And just quickly, group size is important. You don't want a group size too small when you're joining a group of people you don't know, because you want to make sure that there are others who have the same athletic interests that you do, so that you've got other people to hang out with. And not only that, but that you meet people that you like. And so we like groups that are in the 12 to 16 range, not smaller, which a lot of people brag about. Tour companies will say, well, our tour groups are only, average 6. But boy, if you're one person, you show up with 3 couples, that's not great.
Yeah, you're the 7th wheel at that point. I could totally see that for sure.
The odds are higher if the groups are smaller. For private tours, we're expecting them to be in the 4 to 6 person
Okay.
range most often.
Yeah, well, that sort of friends and family segment is going to be the first one that comes out. I mean, we certainly saw that this year in the travel that took place, and there's a lot of missed memories over Thanksgiving and Christmas this year. So people are going to be eager to reconnect, and there's only so many refrigerators you can buy, and times you can paint your interior of your house. So I think travel, as long as people feel safe and when they feel safe to travel again, is certainly going to reap the rewards. We just got to hold on by our fingernails. So this is a strong pivot. I love it. Montana, obviously beautiful country. Do you have a feel as far as when people will be interested in traveling internationally again? What's obviously vaccine related, but do you have some optimism for 2021 still? Maybe second half of the year? Do customers expressing interest?
Yes. So the good news for the travel industry is that a lot of people didn't cancel outright; they just rebooked for the next year. And so most of our 2020 travelers, and granted, we weren't all the way into our booking season, right? So it's not like we had a full complement of people, but we were pretty far in by the time this hit, which means that our 2020 travelers, most of them just rolled over to 2021.
Good.
And that's really good news. And we have been managing that process for the whole time, right? That's what everyone's doing. And what we have been telling people is you don't know when you can travel to Italy yet, but it's probably not going to be in June, because even if you can get the vaccine here in April, it's not clear that Italy is going to be ready to open their borders to people from the United States in April, even if they have a vaccine. And so, yes, we have a lot of people booked on foreign tours. And in fact, and most of those are happening in August and later. And in fact, we just added in 4 new tours abroad for the fall months, November, October, that time frame, because we think that's when people will be feeling safe to go, and that's when countries will be letting us in.
Okay. Are you concerned at all about airlift overseas?
Airlift?
Yes. Yeah, just enough enough seats. Obviously the airline industry is cut to the bone. So how quick does that come back?
I think it's going to come back as fast as it needs to come back, right? Because they have all these planes sitting around. Some of them got rid of planes, but many of the planes are just sitting there. And yes, they have to get that plane up to speed for maintenance and the staff and all that. But I don't think supply is going to be a problem at all.
Okay. Well, that's good news. Good news. Absolutely. One final question for you today. You can't go through something like this and not be scarred and not think that we're just going to like flip the light on in April and hey, everything's back to normal. How has travel changed, or maybe for the better or for the worse through this?
Well, we don't know, but I can tell you how I think I would like to see travel change.
Please.
I would like to see the pandemic have an effect on the travel industry by having people take fewer, more meaningful trips. We're very used to flying around at a moment's notice and going on short trips, be it business trips. People fly across the country, do a business meeting of an hour and fly home again. I mean, that is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for our environment, right? And so we need to change the travel industry to be more sustainable. And this is the opportunity to do it. As business people are used to Zoom meetings and video meetings, as people are used to not traveling for leisure travel, now is the opportunity to make sure that we do it more sustainably in the future. So my pitch to our own travel base is take fewer, longer, more meaningful trips than we used to in the past. And that's coming from a travel company. But you can't, if you don't ignore your role in the world, then you have to take it seriously that we're also part of the problem, not just part of the fun. And I think that's going to be very important for the industry to figure out and to get actively involved in.
Yeah, I love it. More meaningful travel for sure. I think
Yeah.
that's a great way to look at it. Alan, how does somebody get information about what you guys do? Website, contact
So
information?
the easiest thing is to go to zephyrunited.com. Zephyr United is the name we give ourselves for our overall company, which is a sort of a joke because I like to play soccer, and so it sounds like a football club in England.
Okay.
ZEPHYR United.com, and that'll give you links to all the other things that we do, all the conferences and the tours.
Okay, perfect. Well, I look forward to following you guys through this, and we certainly appreciate your time today.
We appreciate your continued interest in the travel industry and in our company specifically. So I appreciate it. Thank you.